You are listening to Dog Decks Radio, the nation's animal station.
I was very disappointed when my dodgy old heart let me know that I needed to take some time out, resulting in Dale hosting our next guest. A lot of the time on this station, we expose some of the cruelest practices inflicted on animals, and it can be utterly heartbreaking. It would have been a joy to interview our next guest, Roxy Danckwerts, who is here to talk about the Zimbabwe Elephant Nursery. It had been a difficult week, as we had lost our station mascot Bert after a short illness. His loss not only knocked us off our feet, but countless volumes of our listeners too. He was a very, very special and much-loved dog all around the world. Listening to Roxy talking about her work made us smile broadly, not only because of the countless lives the nursery has saved, but because of the warmth and kindness that radiated from Roxy and the very obvious deep love that she has for the elephants. Roxy spoke to us in collaboration with i4. Please take some time to visit i4 at i4.org. That's IFAW.org. And Roxy at wildislife.com, where you will find her work with wildlife and the orphaned elephants. In the meantime, grab a cuppa, get comfy, and enjoy listening to Roxy talk about her work.
Good morning, Roxy. Nice to you to join us here on Dog Desk Radio. Can you please tell listeners a little bit about yourself and the journey that led you to start rescuing wildlife, and in particular, in more recent years, how you felt compelled to care for orphaned elephants?
Hi, Dale. Thanks so much for having me on your show. Really nice to meet you. So I'm from Zimbabwe, which is in southern Africa, above South Africa. And I grew up on a farm surrounded by animals and horses and cattle and sheep and ducks and all sorts of things. And I grew up really as an only child. I have a much younger brother. So I would spend a lot of time with animals and just found a natural affinity really with them and also a sense of comfort from them. So, it was not selfish, but it was very much a connectedness, and that has stayed with me my whole life. And I think, generally what we experience in childhood, our passions often dictate the choices that we make later. So I started doing rescue of wildlife about 25 years ago or so. And it was all small things. It was like mongooses and small antelope duiker and a chameleon, and then I was just getting really more and more interested in the whole wildlife scene. I'd spent quite a lot of time in the bush, in the wild as a child. We used to go out camping and we would be in the wild, but there wasn't. It was like taken for granted. I didn't realize at the time how incredibly valuable this was for me later, and in particular, I felt a very strong interest, as it were, in elephant. I walked out of the camp one day into a wild area, which you were allowed to do in those days, and I sat and watched a big bull elephant, and he wasn't far away. He was about 20 feet away, and I was like, 12, and I was sitting on a tree just watching him, and the sense of awe and interest and like affinity came over, and it's something that's always stayed with me. And elephant have been my sort of passion really for a very long time, but it was going to take a long time to get there. So that's rather a long answer to your short question, but
no, not really.
That's a little bit about the background and
Sure.
and how it all came about.
No, that's excellent. Can you please talk us through the experience of your first elephant rescue and your relationship with the female elephant, which I believe is very special?
Well, that's young Moyo. And Moyo is heading towards, she's nearly 7 years old now, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And I'd been working for a couple of years with our national parks to try and get a permit to do elephant rescue. And it was a very, very long process. No one had done it before in Zimbabwe as a sort of project. You know, various people had rescued elephants, but not sort of exclusively. So I had to do a huge amount of research, and then suddenly we got this call to say there was this little elephant up in the north of the country, a tiny little elephant, and would I do something about it? So I managed to get National Parks approval, and we took a plane in, and there was a huge thunderstorm, and the runway was very wet, and the vet arrived there and honestly nearly had a heart attack because this calf was so small, so small. And what had happened to her, we think, we're not 100% sure. She was found standing in the water near an island, and you know there are a lot of crocodiles up there. So you know she was going to get taken by a crocodile or whatever. So, but utterly forlorn, and her feet were all were all soaked and wet and soft, and you could see that she was a newborn. Anyhow, we brought her back to Harare, and I then lived with this elephant. I slept with her, I fed her, and she literally would follow me around like a dog. But the interesting thing with Moyo is that a normal elephant is, when they're born, is about roughly between 100 and 120 kilos. And Moyo was only 56 kilos, so she was half the weight of a normal size. So I did not realize what a monumental task I had ahead of me. You know, I'd done all the research, and I'd read all these things, and I'd contacted people, and oh my goodness, I did not know how difficult this was going to be. But what I did know, and that was sort of an intuitive sense, was that I had to just constantly be there for her as much as I could. So it was me plus the handlers, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but we pulled Moyo through by her bootstraps. And Moyo now is a happy, intelligent elephant who holds a very special place in my heart. She always will. She's just, you know, we have an extraordinary bond, but she's also critical to the nursery, which is amazing. And I can tell you a bit about that later, but she's a really important part of the nursery now. So that was a huge success. Yeah, I had quite a few problems with babies, particularly the very small babies. We couldn't get the milk formula right, and it was just a nightmare. But finally we got there, and yeah, Moyo was a great teacher, a really great teacher.
Good. That's really great. Right. I believe some of the orphaned elephants you rescue have become separated from their herds for various reasons, and occasionally they suffer injuries and attacks from predators. Are there ever victims of poaching or commercial use also?
Yes. Obviously, poaching is an issue. We will often hear of, not often, but sometimes it's an injured mother. We know she's been shot or something has happened. We did a rescue of a little calf 2 weeks ago, actually, and the mother had a very bad bullet injury to her leg, and it had gone septic, and a massive sepsis had set in, and she then subsequently died. And Parks called us in to rescue the calf because he was a milk-dependent calf. So that does happen. We try to rescue elephants that come from man-made situations. So, you know, we had another one whose mother was hit and killed by a bus, that was speeding, and this poor little calf was left utterly traumatized on the side of the road, and we rescued her. And so it does happen. Other things that happen are that they'll get stuck in like man-made troughs, or we've had severe drought over the last couple of years. So climate change is obviously quite a big issue for elephant. And those rescues, while some of them are natural, we do try to stick to the more man-made problems.
Sure.
Yeah.
The ones that are created because we're there, really, isn't it? You know,
exactly.
if we weren't there, there probably wouldn't be these issues.
No, exactly. And but the thing is also, Dale, is that we can't rescue all the elephants. You know, all the calves. We just simply can't do that. There's going to be a natural attrition rate. But, you know, we feel very strongly, and our partner, the International Fund for Animal Welfare, feel the same way, that, you know, if it has been a direct impact by man, then, we should make an effort to rescue that little individual and give it a second chance and ultimately put it back where it belongs.
Yeah. You can only do your best, and that's the thing, isn't it? You know, and it's nice that you're able to actually, get as many in as possible and look after them. I imagine you're faced with a multitude of challenges as you begin to care for and build trust with the elephants suffering from different kinds of trauma. Understanding that some elephants may have seen their mothers and other herd members killed, as you just said, hit by the bus and stuff like that. Do these orphans display particular emotional issues as a result of this, and how do you address that?
You know, Dale, they really do. I see it time and time again, and it's without anthropomorphizing it too much. The emotional distress of these little calves is really significant. So what we'll see is that they'll sleep very badly, or they won't sleep at all until they literally will collapse and, fall asleep. Or they won't lie down. They're too frightened. Their trust issues are so bad. They have a poor appetite. The stress can cause gastric ulceration, which is a big problem in baby elephants. And I've been in the nursery at night, and they'll cry out in their sleep. They'll have a nightmare, and they'll be like almost twitching, and they'll be that there's something going on there, and they struggle to overcome their fear, which is, you can just see it in their eyes. Their eyes are big and wide, and they're just not sure what's going on here. So we have to work really, really hard on that side of it, and be very, very cognizant of what we are doing and how we're doing it to ensure the quickest sort of emotional stability that we can achieve. And we do it, and the elephants do it as well, the other elephants in the herd. So they help us, and they form a really critical part of that beginning of that journey. Yeah.
I did wonder if, the others would be of a good help, just to help them settle in a bit, and the smells are all the same and what they're used to, even though it's not their own mothers and so on.
Exactly. So do you know that these elephants often know before the calf has arrived that there's a calf arriving? Before, I promise you, the calf might be in the air in an aeroplane. These elephants, I've seen it time and time again, they get all sort of twitchy, and their trunks go up and they start to rumble, and they know that something's up. Whether they're picking up our anxiety or what, we don't know. But something that's going on there. And then the baby will arrive, and then there will just be an eruption of rumbling. And it's that beautiful, deep, deep rumbling, and that's a very soothing thing. And then, all the trunks will come over the stable, and they all want to sniff and touch. And it's incredible to watch these animals. And they somehow know that there's trauma there, and this is an orphan, and that they need to be taken care of. And that's what I find so incredibly special about elephants particularly. And Moyo is really our the main protagonist here. We let her out, and she comes and she puts her head over the stable, and she just embraces this baby. And you can just see this baby relax and just chill down. The breathing slows down, and often we'll need to use her to help get this animal to feed, to take a bottle. I mean, she's unbelievable, and she teaches the baby. She does more than we do. It's really amazing.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it sounds great. It's and just such a nice thing. And the thing is, it's just like anything. If whether it's an elephant or another animal or a human, a bit of comfort and familiarity of smell, I suppose, is the thing that they would just. You're going to relax a little bit. When we have two dogs, when we had the second one come in, it was, it was probably a lot easier because the other one was here. Yeah.
Difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really great. The elephants that are very young when they come to you and are still milk dependent, how and what do you feed them? And do you ever experience problems with them accepting a different way of feeding?
So the tiny elephants, which we term the neonates, are probably the most challenging baby animal there is to raise because they are so intolerant of the milk. So they're very, very allergic to the fat in cow's milk and also the protein in cow's milk. So once you start a diarrhea, it's a catastrophe. I mean, you can often not come back from that. So we've worked quite a lot on the milk formula and engaged with various pediatric nutritionists, and I think they're called nutritionists. And so we've come up with it's a specialized baby formula. And to that we add what we know they need. There's extra fats that we add, and then extra minerals like extra calcium and magnesium and whatever. And we start the babies on a very, very diluted formula, and they have a very soft teat. So we use a cow teat, and we just slowly, get them used to it. Some of them will absolutely refuse point blank. They do not want that teat anywhere near their mouths for whatever reason, we don't know. So they will then learn from the others to drink from the bucket. But as a general rule, the tinies will take the bottle. And often what we'll do too is we'll put them underneath Moyo, and then they'll automatically search for the udder, and then we slip the bottle in. And that works a real treat, and it gets them going quite quickly.
And then they become used to that bottle, don't they? Once they've had the experience of it, then they realise that's where they go for a feed. It
actually becomes really almost like their soothing mechanism. That whole suck reflex is obviously important for the digestion, but it just becomes very soothing. So they get twitchy and worried. They like to suck. So, the handlers might put 2 fingers inside their mouths and they'll suck. But the milk is like, and the noise at milk time, the screaming and the shouting and the chaos, if they don't get their milk on time, is just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Anyway.
They're just like children, aren't they?
Yeah. But it's a tricky one because, a little elephant who may be sort of between 9 and 12 months will drink roughly 42 liters a day. Now, if you work out as a parent, what each tin costs, and you equate that to 42 liters a day, the costs are enormous. So that's why we are so lucky, because we have I4 and their supporters who help us pay for the milk. And, it's critical. Otherwise, there's just no point in doing it. But we're really lucky that they understand this problem and how critical it is.
How long do they have to be on the milk for?
Well, this is the snag. So Moyo, age 7, still has her bottle. But she has it more as a sort of like treat, really. Yeah. But she will not let that bottle go. Generally, they're milk dependent really for about, I would say, 2.5 years. By then they are eating a lot of solids, they're eating some cubes, they've learned how to browse and whatever, but they still need, for some reason, still need something from that milk. And so we keep it going for about 3 years, we keep it going. But the quantity comes down somewhat.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. That helps.
No, it does. But, I mean, they get addicted to their bottles, so weaning is, oh, my goodness. and the mother.
So, yeah, it's a matter of working out how to get them off that bottle, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. It sounds like it must be a bit of fun at the same time as hard work, but it's not. It's just you imagine that you've got quite a few pounds or kilos of elephant that you're trying to sort of say look, you need to do this, and they're like a small child that's saying I don't want to, and
Absolutely. And if they don't want, and they throw tantrums, they will shake their heads and scream and perform, and they've got tempers on them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so bad if it was the size of a chihuahua, but when you're talking about the elephant, you sort of got to make sure you stand back, eh?
Yeah, indeed.
In the early days of an orphan's time at your nursery, you must have to spend a huge amount of time with them. Do you and the other carers have to stay with the elephant all the time like the mother would? And how is this managed, especially with all the other wildlife you have to care for?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We do have to stay with those babies. They cannot be left for 1 minute alone. So what we do is we have so the people who work in the elephant nursery will be separate to the other wildlife that we're caring for. So they sort of operate as two separate systems, just because of this whole night thing. So we're in the stables at night. There are handlers who stay over during the night. All the handlers, they work on like 8-hour shifts. So there's 3 handlers during the day for each young calf. So it's quite labor intensive. But what's also important is that we move the handlers around a little bit so they don't get too attached to one handler.
Sure.
It's almost impossible for that not to happen, because they have their favorites. But it's quite important, because if you do leave them for any length of time, they can actually get quite sick. They get emotionally very distressed and quite sick. So this whole management of the emotional side is critical. I mean, it's like a human baby comes into the world, and it's not a time of bliss for them. It's a time of absolute terror. Everything is alarming. Their bodies are alarming. This little trunk they've got is like, what do they do with it? Where's mom? Who are all these people? What's going on? And it's terrifying. And so what we have to do is just through touch and very gentle, low voice, we just work quietly and calmly and constantly reassuring. They're very, very not susceptible. What's the word? There's a word. They're just, they love to be touched, tactile.
Right. Yeah.
So we do that a lot. And there's, I think an elephant, like perhaps horses or even humans, their reactions to the world are shaped by what's done to them in early childhood. A dog, if someone hits a dog, the dog will come back. But I mean, if you do that to an elephant, you could be in big trouble in 20 years' time, because that elephant will not forget. And either, he'll come after you, and they recognize people, they know. And they just, Daphne Sheldrick said it so beautifully, they read your heart. And I've seen it. Oh my goodness, they do read your heart, even from a very young age. So, yeah, that's another rather long answer. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. No worries at all.
Edit out.
So the words of an elephant never forgets is quite true, eh?
Well, they do. They have extraordinary long-term memory. Extraordinary. And they do. I mean, I've seen Moyo greet people who she met maybe when she was 6 months old and whom she may have liked, or even a vet whom she didn't like, and she'll react.
The vet she doesn't like probably won't come to visit again.
They're a little bit anxious. Yeah, that vet who would have given an injection or whatever. Yeah.
Not high on their popularity list, are they? No. the bond between a mother and her offspring is a very close one in the elephant world. So I imagine that the youngsters become very attached to the human carer. As you were saying, there's, shifts of 3 a day.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this and start to manage it as the elephants are being prepared for the return to the wild?
So when they get to about a year old, we stop the 3 carers per elephant time, and they by then will have been going out with the herd but with their carers. So the main herd has far less handlers with it. But these little ellies have been sort of protected to a certain extent by the sort of antics of, rambunctious teenagers, as it were. And then, as they're getting older, the handlers start sort of moving away a little bit. They're still there for comfort and to, keep the elephants going in the right direction. But what we're trying to do is get these elephants to make their own choices. Because when they go into the wild, they have to learn to make their own mind up. And they have to listen to the herd. They've got to understand the whole herd dynamic. Mm-hmm. So we tend to start, here at the nursery, we start a little bit more hands off. And then when they get to the release site, it's even more hands off. So, for instance, when they want to go for water, they can go. They can move. Or when they want to change their feeding area, they can do that. They make that decision themselves. They're not told by the handlers, you will go here now. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's a very important part of the rewilding. It's more difficult for some elephants. Some elephants are just, they're just like too attached to handlers, and so it takes longer. We just have to be patient.
Yeah. And everyone is different, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And everyone learns at a different rate, but they learn so much from each other. So, having the herd dynamic is pretty critical.
Yeah. And they need to have that, because once they're in the wild, they're within the herd as well, aren't they? So
exactly.
It's a matter of the progress from orphaned and being looked after by human handlers to then progressing through to the herd and to the the expectations of being an elephant and with other elephants. So and as you say, everybody learns at a different rate. So some will be more attached than others, and some will be more independent and headstrong and whatever else. So
I mean, all individuals, all of them, and they all have their funny little eccentricities and their little traits, but that that choice making is interesting. We have an elephant up in our release site in Pandamasui, and he's an older bull now. I mean, he's around about 9 or 10 years old, and he will often just head off into the bush on his own, leave the rest, and he'll go and join some big bulls. And it's like almost like, let's have a whiskey and let's chat about, what's been going on in the city. And then he'll come back after a day or 2 days or however long. And he's allowed to do that. So he's making his own choice.
Sure.
And, it's a very slow process, but we feel that what we call it a soft release is working quite nicely. Whereas another elephant just left, literally never came back. He joined a wild herd. He was a slightly younger elephant, joined a wild herd, never came back. We've seen him quite a few times. He's in the middle of the herd, and there he is. He's a wild elephant. So you just, they all take their own time.
Yeah. And it's good that they can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As much as we can, within reason and within safety and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. I believe your vision of seeing your rescued elephants return to life in the wild is now becoming a reality, which must be very exciting and fulfilling to see. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you are doing with I4 as rehabilitated elephants start their journey to rewilding and the process involved, please?
So I was really lucky to be introduced to I4 quite early on in this journey, because I didn't realize quite how big it was going to be, and quite, how the magnitude of the project. So, IFOR came in, and our visions were very much aligned, and we had a very good connection. And the point for us was not just the rewilding of the elephants, but also the protection of the landscape. That for us is critical. And IFOR were on the same page as that. So what we've done is we've together have leased a large area of land which connects 2 national parks, and we now protect that fully. And the great thing about it is that the wild ellies are coming back more and more, and the wildlife is increasing dramatically because there's no poaching or anything like that going on. So that shared vision has enabled us to do this properly, to create the boma where the elephants live. It's a big enclosure for these elephants up in the release site, and to give the elephants the time to go through this process, which obviously is a long process. But at the same time, we are protecting like this incredible forest area. It is a forest area. And it's so nice to be able to, not only are we protecting the elephants and releasing the elephants, but we're protecting the beetles and the butterflies and the trees and the, all the small animals that are all part of that whole ecosystem. So it's become a very holistic project. And we're very lucky that we have IFOR who are, behind that whole vision, and who guide us, and we guide them, and it works really well.
Excellent.
I hope that answered that question.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's just, the thing is, it's just, when I suppose when you first started and you rescue your first elephant, and you orphaned elephant, and then you think, it would be great to, create the environment where it's just back to what it used to be, and they can all just live nicely and everything else. And to actually see it come into fruition must be unbelievable.
Oh, Dale, you have no idea. I mean, to see those elephants up, when they leave here, I'm devastated. I'm attached to each and every one of them. And, I find it terribly emotional and miserable, and I hate it, but it has to happen. But when I see them up there, and, they've got bright eyes, and they're alert, and they're looking around, and, they rumble, and they race out in the morning out of their paddock out into the bush. And it's just wonderful. And then even better is when we see these wild elephants come to them and come up to the boma. We have what's called an interaction zone, which my son developed, and because he manages the release project. And so they started coming at night, and the wild elephants would put their trunks through, and they'd meet our elephants, and there'd be a lot of chitter-chatter, and then, they get to know each other, and we get to know the bulls as well. And then when they meet them out in the bush, it's great because they know them already, and it's not a problem. There's no aggro, there's no trouble. And it's just like, it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
Yeah. That's excellent. It's just like one big family, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is.
How do you keep these elephants as safe as you can during the rewilding process and once they are fully back in the wild?
So there are 2 aspects here. One is poaching, which we have very much under control. We together with IFOR, we've trained up forestry rangers who actually work for the Forestry Commission of Zimbabwe, plus our own rangers. They are armed, and those rangers not only protect the herd itself on a daily basis from predators, actually, because there's quite a lot of lion up there. So, that's a risk. And then the game rangers, they're doing regular patrols and whatever, and checking for snares and checking for anti-poaching. So those really are the best things that we can do to protect them. And also, making the elephants aware of their surroundings. So we take them to different areas. They've got to learn the routes that is safe. We don't want them going into the villages, so we try and avoid them and move them away from there, so they're not making, those choices which are poor choices. And look, we have to be realistic about this. Something may happen one day. We don't know. But my feeling is that elephant has had a chance to be a wild elephant where he or she should be. And it's worth that risk.
Yeah, of course. And the thing is, if you weren't rescuing these orphans, then they wouldn't have that chance at growing up and living back with the herd and just being a wild elephant in its normal habitat. So, it's really great. Knowing about the difficult start in life, how does it feel to know that many of these elephants you nurtured to survive are now regularly interacting with the wild herds?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was worried about it in the beginning. I have a thing that there may be a language issue, a communication issue between elephants from different areas. Because I've seen quite a lot of confusion when a slightly older calf comes into the herd and doesn't immediately integrate and goes very silent. So when we're putting elephants into the release area, it's another thing that I have an anxiety about. But once they start vocalizing, then it gets really exciting, because then okay, now there's something happening here, and that wildness is starting to regenerate inside them. And we don't know what they're picking up, but they must be picking up a huge amount of information from those wild herds. So, for instance, we had our little herd were out in the bush, and the rangers hadn't seen it, but there were 3 lions lying in a gully quite close by. I mean, like 40 or 50 meters away, and one big female elephant who's never been in the wild before, she went and she went for these lions, and she chased them away from the herd. She's one of our matriarchs. And how did she know that? Is that an instinct? Yes, maybe it is, but I think elephants learn from each other, and it was so exciting that she knew she had to protect that herd. And that for me becomes it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And that is the joy of this rewilding.
It becomes instinct in some, isn't it? It's just, you just think, well, someone has to look after the younger ones, the smaller ones, etc., and you just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be risky.
Definitely.
They nearly had a heart attack. They were on foot. And suddenly these 3 lions pop up behind the gully, and they honestly nearly had a heart attack. Big eyes.
Hello. Thank you. See ya. I'm hiding behind the elephant.
Exactly.
Right. I would not like to have been there myself. I would have done the same thing. I think I would have just frozen and thought, my God, someone help me.
Yeah.
You must experience some incredible highs and lows sometimes in the challenging work that you do. What ultimately drives you to continue?
Yeah, Dale, I do. I have a big problem with the deaths. So when we lose a baby, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, I've sat with a number of calves who have passed on, and they sit and they look at you and they're lying there, and that there's very little that you can do. And I'm sitting with the handlers, and we're in the stable, and it's usually at night, and there's often a little tears run down their face, and they're just constantly keeping their eye on you, and it's a really, really heartbreaking thing to go through. And the handlers, once the animal has gone, will often just weep. These are grown men who are weeping, and they've become they've become terribly attached, but there's such an emotional connection with these animals. So what I find hard is that I have to be the strong one. And, I hold everything together inside, and, I then will direct operations and I'll send everyone home. And then I'm left with the baby, and I'll cover the baby and I'll tidy up all the stuff and just quietly, say goodbye in my own way. And then I'll grieve on my own. But it's quite hard to manage the people. And also the other elephants know what's going on. And, they get very upset too. They go very, very quiet, and they get a bit depressed for a few days. And those lows are really tough. But what I'm learning is that I have to just honor the animal. I can't save them all. I can't fix them all. Sometimes it's just beyond my control. And it's a real paradigm of animal husbandry and veterinary and medical and science. Sometimes you can't fix it.
Yes.
So what I'm learning now is more to honor the animal and to give the animal space to do what it needs to do in the best possible environment, surrounded with, good, without being woo-woo, but surrounded with good energy and love and not hurt it anymore. Don't stick needles and whatever. Just be calm and go with this process, because it is a process. So my drive really is to continue to learn how to honor the wisdom of the animal, if that makes any sense. And it's quite a journey, and it's a lifetime journey. And anyone who loves animals will understand that quite deeply, I think. Yes, there's always the attachment, but the honoring of that animal and the honoring of our planet, is very important.
It's a matter of sometimes there's only so much you can do, and then nature has to take its course, isn't it? And whether you want to do more, or sometimes you just have to let go. And
you have to weigh up, how much suffering is this animal going through? Really, what is the prognosis here? I mean, of course, you will do your absolute best to save this animal, but in the past, breath used to be my most important, it was something that I would latch onto. It was the most important part of the work that I did. So where there is breath, there is life. So long as there's breath, there is life, and we keep on working. But I've changed that a little bit now, and I feel that one has to be a little bit careful not to push too hard and cause more suffering. And so I'm taking a slightly more, just a different approach about honor. And letting nature happen a little bit without massive intervention that can then cause actually more damage. So, yeah, that's pretty much the answer to let nature take its course.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Yeah.
And the thing is, that's, the lows is that when there's nothing else that left to be done. But I'm sure there's plenty of highs and excitement and good times with other things that, when life goes on, and the return to the herd and all of those sorts of things. So I'm sure they far outweigh the lows.
Yeah, no, there's always balance. And, I'll sometimes say, I can't do this again. And then, a new baby will come, and then there's all this, love and action and emotion, and you get involved, and then you win. And that baby grows and becomes part of the herd, and it's what a pleasure. So you're right. You've got to find the balance. Sometimes it's very dark, but often it's just very joyful.
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of, there are more saved than not, and they have the opportunity and a chance by coming to you, and you hope that they all continue to grow and get better and go on to a nice life, but you just do the best with everything. So I think it's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's who we are.
Okay, well, can you tell our listeners where they can find your organisation online or via social media so that they can discover more about your work with elephants and how they can support you?
Oh, that's really great, Dale. Thanks for asking. So there's two different options here. You can either go to i4.org, who have us represented on their websites and social media, and who support us considerably. Or we've got our own website, which is wildestlife.com, and there the elephant nursery and the other wildlife is on there. And on social media, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're not big Twitter fans. We haven't really worked that little number out, but we put quite a lot up on Facebook, and you can follow the progress of the different animals and the sort of news that comes through there. So yeah, any kind of support, whether it's just sharing or talking about it or donating, is just because it's expensive work.
Sure, yeah, 42 litres of milk. I'll never forget that, I tell you. A day, isn't it?
Yes.
Have a bit of a drink. Thank you. I know a few Australians that are like that. Finally, Roxy, what message would you most like to convey to the listeners to help the elephants?
Dale, when I got really into the elephant nursery, what I sort of wanted to convey was what I termed to be the culture of care. I wanted, my country, the people of my country, to learn to care for animals, for elephants, and that message just it comes through in everything that we do, and it's a message that I'm trying to use to reach people, to learn to care, to take the time to care, and and to care on a not only in a microcosmic way, but on a macrocosmic way as well. And so yeah, that is more my message. Is yes, elephants need help. They need to be protected. We need to create more space for them. But above all, we need to care about them, and care in a positive way and in an informed way. And that really is why I do what I do.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, Roxy, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sure our listeners will be learn lots from our interview today, and we will also put down all the information of where they can find out more about you on our website and so on, so that they've got the links. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. And thanks all to your listeners and for all the effort that you made to put this together and get the word out. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Join the Kibble Club today. Buy a bag, save a life. Just £2 a month.